What's going on, guys? I am back. Today we're going to take a look at some chips that AMD just sent me recently. I got two of them, the Ryzen 3 1200 and the Ryzen 3 1300X. These are both 4-core, 4-thread chips from AMD. Kind of meant to be in the budget or entry-level category for the Ryzen lineup. And today we're going to test them out and see how they perform as gaming CPUs, I guess you could say it. These are pretty identical spec-wise and architecture-wise. Again, same core and thread count, same cache count or amount. Really, the only difference comes with the base clock and the turbo clocks of these two CPUs. So the 1200 has a base clock of 3.1 gigahertz and a turbo clock of 3.4 gigahertz, whereas the 1300X has a base clock of 3.5 gigahertz and a turbo clock of 3.7 gigahertz. So they should perform pretty similarly, with the 1300X having the slight edge, I think. So we're gonna run some benchmarks and see if that is the case. Now, before we do that, let me introduce you to the Ghetto Test Bench. If you haven't seen it before, this is running a MSI B350 PC Mate motherboard, 16 gigabytes of HyperX Fury RAM running at 2666 megahertz, an Asus Strix GTX 1070, and an FSP 650 watt power supply. Now, we are going to run these benchmarks at 1080p with the settings turned down just slightly so that we can make these tests a little bit more CPU bound rather than GPU limited. And that way we can kind of see the differences between the processor performance. So I'm just going to throw the benchmarks on the screen for you guys to take a look at. I tested 9 games total, so that should be plenty to give you guys or help you guys make a conclusion for yourself on which one is better or not. One thing I do want to mention here with Battlefield 1 is I did test this on multiplayer as well on a 64-player Conquest map. Due to the nature of the multiplayer gameplay, I can't really run a consistent benchmark, so I decided to just capture like a minute's worth of frame time data so you guys can see how consistent it is and if there's any dips or anything like that that may disrupt the gameplay. So you guys can take a look at that. I will report, aside from just showing it to you on the screen, that I really didn't have any issues there running any 64-player maps on Battlefield, which is definitely an improvement over the Pentium G4560 that I tested a few months back. That definitely struggled with that. I also wanted to test some PUBG for you guys. Due to the nature of that game as well, being multiplayer, there's not really just a standard benchmark that I can run over and over again. But I wanted to include the game, so I decided to just capture a little bit of gameplay on the screen for you guys with the MSI Afterburner overlay on board so you guys can take a look at it. Not my favorite way to do things, but I think it's better than nothing. So we'll go ahead and roll with that for now. I did only test the 1300X with this, but the 1200 should perform similarly. Of course, just a little bit lower since the clock speeds are not quite the same as the 1300X, but you guys will get the idea pretty much of how it performs here, I think. And while we're watching this, I just want to comment, this game was crazy too, because I was way outside of the circle. I was running my ass off trying to get there, happened to just catch this random guy lacking. Finally found a vehicle and I headed the wrong damn way like an idiot. Then I'm headed the right way and I finally get in the circle. I think I'm gonna get a kill. Hop out of the vehicle just to find out my weapon's not loaded. and let's just say it's the end of the game for me. So that kind of sucked, but yeah, that's PUBG for you. Also, one thing I wanted to test, because I know people were gonna ask, is what happens if you overclock the 1200? So I overclocked it to 3.8 gigahertz and put it up against the stock 1300X. And I didn't retest every game, but as you guys can see, when you overclock the 1200 to 3.8 gigahertz, it actually slightly outperforms the 1300X, which means if you're planning on overclocking, it's better to probably just stick with the 1200 rather than spending the extra money on the 1300X, because I think the 1300X is like 130 bucks right now on Newegg, and you can get the 1200 for 110 bucks. So, you know, if you're gonna overclock, it makes sense to just go with the 1200, save yourself a little bit of money, and you will at least meet the performance of the 1300X. So that makes it a pretty good value. Next up, I'm actually gonna test it against the Pentium G4560 and see which one is the best budget CPU right now. So look for that coming out soon, but yeah, this is pretty much it, the 1200 versus 1300X. Let me know you guys' thoughts on these two CPUs down below. I will say that for entry-level chips, I think they actually performed well. 4-core, 4-thread chips. I didn't have any issues playing any games. I guess I could say they weren't really limiting me in any way. Obviously, I wouldn't really pair this with a 1070 if I was going to, you know, build an actual system, because they're not going to let your GPU reach its maximum potential. But we can see here that, you know, they're good enough for entry level and maybe mid-range gaming system. So again, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like this video if you like this type of content. Subscribe if you've not already. I'll see you guys next time. See ya.